began in silence, hidden beneath the surface of a quiet American suburb. A young woman chasing love and safety walked into a home that would become her prison. Behind closed doors, secrets grew darker and trust became a weapon. The walls of a basement held screams no one heard, tears no one saw. And when the truth surfaced, it was already too late. Her name was Rina Marroquin. Her story is one of innocence, betrayal, and a tragic end that shook Long Island. Long Island, New York. A suburban town where the nights are quiet, the streets safe, and neighbors wave to each other on their evening walks. But in Jericho, hidden behind the walls of a modest house, a secret darker than anyone imagined was waiting to be uncovered. Rina Marroquin was young, hopeful, and chasing a life that promised safety and love. She left behind the noise of the city, believing this move would bring her peace. Instead, it led her to the basement of a home where her story would end in tragedy. Few noticed when she disappeared. Fewer still knew the truth hiding below their feet. In those early days, Rina's voice was still heard in laughter, in conversations with friends, in whispered promises to herself of a better tomorrow. But slowly she withdrew. Neighbors wondered, friends asked questions, but no one expected the horror she was living. The walls of that basement saw everything: fear, betrayal, and silence. A silence that would one day break the heart of Long Island. By the time investigators would later retrace her final days, the warning signs seemed impossible to ignore. But in the moment, Rina's story looked like so many others. A young woman searching for stability, trusting the wrong person, and paying the highest price. The house in Jericho looked ordinary. A white picket fence, trimmed hedges, the kind of place where families take holiday photos on the front porch. But basements can hide what the front lawn never reveals. Inside those walls, Rina lived in fear, her life controlled by someone who promised love but delivered cruelty. Neighbors would recall faint arguments, muffled sounds in the night but brushed them off. After all, this was Long Island, not a place where horrors usually unfold. Rina's voice faded from phone calls and social circles. Friends left messages that went unanswered. She skipped gatherings, missed shifts, and quietly slipped into isolation. Her absence became the kind of silence that eats at those who care. The silence that says something is wrong. Yet still, no one knocked at the door that hid her final chapter. When the truth finally surfaced, it shocked even hardened detectives. The basement wasn't just a room, it was a prison. Rina's fate was sealed behind locked doors, and her story would become one of Long Island's darkest crimes. By the spring of 1999, Rina Marroquin had almost completely vanished from the life she once knew. Her friends described her as warm, funny, and full of hope, but behind closed doors she was slowly being erased. Her world shrank to the four walls of a Jericho basement, where trust turned into torment. The man she trusted controlled her every move. What began as affection twisted into manipulation, isolation, and fear. Like so many cases of domestic abuse across America, the signs were there but hidden in plain sight. The loud arguments that neighbors shrugged off, the sudden disappearance from family gatherings, the unreturned phone calls that stretched from days into weeks. Each detail, dismissed alone, formed the pattern of a woman in danger. But Rina's story was different in one haunting way. She never made it out. While most victims of abuse hope for escape, Rina's chance was stolen. The basement became not just a prison, but a tomb. Her laughter silenced, her presence erased, her life taken by the very person she thought she could trust. And when police finally uncovered the truth, it wasn't just a murder. It was betrayal. It was brutality. It was the kind of case that leaves a scar on a community forever. When Rina Marroquin was finally reported missing, the silence surrounding her disappearance felt louder than any scream. Detectives in Nassau County began retracing her steps. piecing together the fragments of a life that had slipped into shadow. Friends described a woman full of light, suddenly cut off. Family members begged for answers, their calls to her going unanswered. And neighbors recalled uneasy nights and muffled cries, arguments behind closed doors, signs they ignored until it was too late. The search led them to the Jericho home, a place that looked ordinary from the outside. Detectives walked past the white siding, the trimmed lawn, the quiet suburban calm. But inside unease grew. The house told a story no one wanted to hear. Every step down the basement stairs brought them closer to the truth. The smell of damp concrete, the sight of discarded belongings, and finally, the undeniable evidence of violence. Rina's body was discovered in that basement, hidden away as though her life meant nothing. But to her family, to her community, to every detective who worked the case, her life meant everything. The discovery sent shockwaves through Long Island. How could such horror exist beneath the surface of an ordinary home? How could no one have seen the truth sooner? The Jericho Basement Murder was no longer just a case. It was a tragedy that forced an entire community to confront the dangers of silence, denial, and abuse hidden in plain sight. News of Rina Marroquin's murder spread quickly across Long Island, shattering the sense of safety that Jericho's quiet streets once promised. Local papers ran her photo alongside headlines of betrayal and brutality. Neighbors who once walked past the house, without a second thought now, gathered outside, staring in disbelief. Vigils were held, candles lit, voices raised in grief and anger. Rina's name became a symbol, a reminder of how violence can hide behind the most ordinary doors. The investigation revealed chilling details. Rina hadn't just been killed. She had been controlled, silenced, and hidden. The man responsible, once seen as trustworthy, was unmasked as a predator who turned love into fear and safety into a trap. Detectives laid out the evidence, the lies, the manipulations, the basement where her final days were spent. Each detail painted a picture of cruelty that left the community shaken. For the people of Long Island, this wasn't just another crime story. It was a wake-up call. The Jericho Basement Murder forced neighbors, families, and even law enforcement to confront the dangers of domestic abuse and the deadly consequences of ignoring the warning signs. Every candle lit in her memory carried a message. Rina's story would not be forgotten, and her tragedy would not be in vain. In the months that followed Rina Marroquin's death, the case moved from shock to justice. Courtrooms filled with family, friends, and reporters as prosecutors laid bare the cruelty she endured. Every testimony echoed the same truth. Rina's life was stolen by someone she trusted. The verdict brought accountability, but no sentence could undo the silence of that Jericho basement. Her family grieved not only for what they had lost, but for the future she never lived. Birthdays missed, dreams unfulfilled, laughter that would never return. Yet even in grief they carried her name forward, demanding awareness, demanding change. Advocacy groups invoked her story in campaigns against domestic violence, reminding communities that silence can kill and that intervention saves lives. Long Island, forever marked by her story, changed too. Neighbors who once walked past that house now talk openly about red flags, about reaching out, about refusing to ignore warning signs. The Jericho Basement Murder is remembered not just as a crime, but as a turning point, a tragic reminder that love should never chain, control, or destroy. Rina Marroquin's legacy is written not only in tragedy, but in the voices that rose after her. Voices that promised her story will never fade into silence. Her name will live as both a warning and a call for justice. Thanks you for watch. Every old story holds a lesson worth remembering. If you enjoyed this one, subscribe for watch and listen more old times, real stories, and don't forget,